It's official. Donald Trump has managed to unite world leaders, but not in the way he hoped. Instead of backing him, they're coming together to tear his plan apart. The latest? A phony peace board, where Trump's inviting authoritarian figures like Putin and Orban to help dismantle the United Nations and NATO. But here's the kicker. It's not just being ignored, it's getting a brutal backlash. French President Emmanuel Macron wasted no time. He flatly rejected Trump's proposal, saying, "No way are we joining this ridiculous peace board." And it's not just about the idea, it's the cost. Trump wants countries to pay $1 billion to join, with that money conveniently funneled into some foreign bank account he controls while he decides the rules. France isn't alone. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk slammed the idea as well, vowing Poland would never play along. But what's more shocking, even Trump's usual allies are turning on him. Nigel Farage, once a staunch supporter, called Trump's actions the biggest threat to the UK and Europe in generations. The world's response is clear. Trump's reckless move is uniting everyone against him. But here's the part nobody's saying out loud. What happens when the backlash gets even worse? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. The backlash is only the beginning. While world leaders are uniting against Trump, this isn't just a small hiccup. It's part of a dangerous growing pattern. Every move he makes seems to push global alliances further into disarray. And now, this peace board idea is just the latest in a series of risky, destabilizing moves. Let's break this down. Trump wants a new world order, but not one built on collaboration. Instead, it's a model where dictators and strongmen hold the reins, where NATO and the UN are sidelined. And it's not just a vague plan. He's tying up billions of dollars in a scheme that will give him total control. But why now? What's behind this sudden push? It's not just about power. It's about dismantling the systems that have held the world together for decades. But here's the question. Why are so many countries willing to risk everything to push back? What's so wrong with Trump's vision that even his closest allies are running for cover? You might think this is just another political squabble, but it's much more. The stakes are rising faster than you realize. Trump's plan isn't just a diplomatic blunder, it's a reckless gamble that's already beginning to unravel. Take a closer look at what's happening. Germany, France, Poland, they're all rejecting the idea, and not just with words, but with concrete action. And it's not just about refusing to join Trump's peace board, it's about something far bigger. Here's the proof. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk made it clear his country won't allow anyone to play them. He said, Poland's ascension to an international organization requires the consent of the Council of Ministers and ratification by the same. In other words, Poland won't be forced into anything it doesn't want, and it's sending a clear message. Trump's influence isn't as widespread as he thinks. Notice what's missing here. Trump's usual strategy of strong-arm tactics isn't working anymore. Even within his own sphere of influence, the cracks are showing. Countries are openly refusing to follow his lead. And why? Because they're waking up to the bigger picture. Trump's actions are not just unorthodox, they're dangerous. What does this mean for the future of global politics? Stick with me, because this is just the beginning. But this isn't just an isolated failure. It's part of a larger pattern, one that's been unfolding for years. Think back, Trump's moves have consistently alienated key allies. From withdrawing from the Paris Agreement to attacking NATO, every step has driven wedges between the U.S. and its partners. And now, with this latest stunt, reaching out to authoritarian regimes while pushing NATO aside, he's amplifying the fractures. And here's where things get dangerous. The normalization of these actions, what should have been seen as a reckless power grab, is in many ways becoming the new status quo. Look at what's happening in the UK right now. Even Nigel Farage, once a diehard Trump supporter, is calling out the president. In a conversation with MAGA Mike Johnson, Farage said, "This is the biggest fracture in our relationship between our two countries since Suez in 1956. Think about that. A far-right figure like Farage is distancing himself from Trump. This isn't just a disagreement. It's the beginning of a real fracture in international relations. Now, we're witnessing the consequences of Trump's actions ripple out across the globe. Countries that were once aligned with him are starting to pull away. What happens when this trend picks up speed? What happens when these alliances begin to break down entirely? This isn't just talk anymore. It's getting real. The backlash is intensifying, and we're seeing proof that this isn't a passing phase. Take what's happening in Syria, for example. Trump has completely abandoned the Kurds, the very allies who fought alongside the U.S. to defeat ISIS. And what's the result? Syria's government forces, backed by Russia and Iran, are wiping out the Kurdish regions. Thousands of innocent lives are at risk, and what's Trump doing? Absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, on the global stage, we're witnessing a disturbing trend: Trump's silence on brutal crackdowns. The Iranian government is slaughtering protesters who took to the streets, demanding change, and Trump has done nothing but tweet. Thousands are dead, gruesome footage flooding social media, but instead of taking action, Trump pats himself on the back for stopping a few hangings. What kind of leader turns a blind eye to this? And let's not forget the U.S. betrayal of its Kurdish allies in Syria. Trump's decision to pull troops left the Kurds exposed to brutal attacks. But what's worse, he's allowed ISIS prisoners to be released from Kurdish jails, putting the region back on the brink of chaos. This is no longer just political maneuvering, it's a crisis. Now imagine the ripple effect of this. The U.S. once led the fight against ISIS. Now, Trump's actions have handed them a victory. What's next? If this continues, what kind of world are we looking at? It's happening fast, and it's all connected. First, Trump's disastrous handling of international relations. Now we're seeing the fallout. Countries are standing up, speaking out, and pushing back, and it's all happening under pressure. The global response to Trump's reckless behavior is escalating. In Denmark, they've taken a hard stance. The Prime Minister has warned that if the U.S. invades Greenland, they will fight back. We'll go to war with the United States, he said, not holding back. Can you imagine that? NATO allies prepared to go head-to-head with the U.S. over Trump's absurd territorial ambitions. And that's not all. Denmark's Joint Arctic Command chief spoke out as well, expressing shock that one NATO partner could threaten another. It's disappointing, he said. NATO, once a symbol of unity, is now unraveling at the seams because of one man's arrogance. But it's not just military tensions building, it's economic too. Germany and France are now talking about counter tariffs, and they're not mincing words. The French finance minister warned that the U.S. could face severe consequences, treating America like a coercive regime. This is no longer a political spat. It's a trade war in the making. If this keeps up, the global economy could suffer in ways we're not even prepared for. What happens if this continues? How far will it go before it's too late to reverse course? This isn't just about politics. This isn't some far-off debate happening in government halls. This is real life, and it's hitting everyday people hard. When world leaders speak of going to war over Greenland or slamming Trump's trade policies, they're not just talking about abstract concepts, they're talking about you. Let's take a step back. How many ordinary people are caught in this whirlwind? It's families in Europe who are facing potential economic fallout from trade wars. It's civilians in Syria, where Trump's betrayal of the Kurds is causing their lives to spiral into chaos. And it's people in Iran, in Iraq, in regions where Trump's inaction has emboldened authoritarian regimes to crush dissent. If this feels familiar, say so in the comments. We're all affected by this, whether we realize it or not. People's homes, their futures, their basic rights are being threatened by these political failures. Trump's moves are shaking the very foundations of global peace. And it's the everyday person who bears the brunt of it. Now imagine this. If these tensions keep escalating, if these alliances keep fracturing, what happens to the world you know? How long until this stops being just a headline and becomes something that changes everything for you too? Now let's step beyond the outrage and look at the bigger picture. The real question isn't just about what Trump is doing, it's about how and why this is happening in the first place. It's not random. This is the result of systems built on leverage, fear, and spectacle. Trump's reckless behavior isn't just a personal failing. It's a reflection of how power is distributed and manipulated on the world stage. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Trump's actions aren't happening in a vacuum. They're part of a larger shift, one that's been years in the making. The systems that allowed for global cooperation, NATO, the UN, established diplomatic channels, are being systematically undermined. And why? Because they don't serve certain people's interests anymore. What Trump is doing isn't about making peace. It's about consolidating power in a way that leaves no room for anyone else. But what's even more unsettling is this. The more Trump pushes, the more the world adjusts. Countries like France, Germany, and Denmark are realizing that standing up to the U.S. isn't just a moral choice, it's a survival tactic. The more Trump isolates the U.S., the more countries have to adapt to a world without America at the helm. And that's terrifying, because once these alliances break, once the trust is gone, there's no going back. This is bigger than one presidency. It's a signal of a global shift that could change the balance of power forever. And if we're not careful, it will reshape everything you know about how the world operates. So where does this all go from here? There are two possible paths, and neither is clear-cut. On one hand, the world could begin to fracture even more. If Trump continues down this path, pushing authoritarian alliances, slapping on tariffs, and pulling back from global responsibilities, we could see the collapse of alliances that have been decades in the making. The very institutions that have maintained some form of peace and stability could crumble, and the ripple effects will be felt worldwide. But here's the other possibility: a tipping point. If the backlash grows louder, if more countries stand up to Trump, we could witness a massive shift. Global leaders are already beginning to question whether they can continue playing by Trump's rules. The EU has already shown signs of uniting, with France and Germany looking to deepen their ties. Could this be the beginning of a new order, one where Europe, China, or even other emerging powers step into roles the U.S. once held? Either way, the next move is already in motion. Countries are rethinking their relationships with the U.S., and every action Trump takes will either accelerate or delay this transformation. The real question is, how fast will this shift happen? And when it does, will we be ready for it? Here's the truth. The world is at a crossroads. Trump's actions are forcing global leaders to make choices they never thought they'd have to make. Alliances are cracking, trust is fading, and the very foundation of international cooperation is under threat. But there's one thing that's certain. This isn't just about Trump. This is about the future of global power, and what happens next will shape everything that comes after. So, what's the one takeaway from all this? It's that the world is changing fast, and it's up to us, citizens, leaders, and nations, to decide what kind of world we want to live in. The question isn't just what Trump does next, it's how the world responds to it. And here's the kicker. This story is far from over. What comes next could be even more shocking than what we've already seen. To stay on top of this evolving situation, make sure you're subscribed for more in-depth analysis. We're just getting started.